forest lay cloaked in an impenetrable darkness, a place where even the bravest souls dared not venture. A shroud of mist, as thick as despair itself, clung to the gnarled branches of ancient trees, obscuring the path ahead. Within this eerie wilderness stood the grim sentinel of terror, Grimwood Manor. Grimwood Manor was a decrepit relic from a bygone era, forgotten by time and forsaken by all who knew of its existence. Its windows, long shattered, gaped like empty eye sockets, windowsills overgrown with creeping ivy that seemed to mourn the mansion's decay. The very air around it hung heavy with a foreboding aura, as if the very earth beneath it had surrendered to some malevolent force. Eleanor, her breath visible in the chill, moonless night, ventured deeper into the forest. She clutched an aged parchment map in her trembling hand, a relic of forgotten lore, leading her to this forsaken place. The feeble beam of her flashlight cast a timid glow on the path ahead, illuminating gnarled roots that reached like skeletal fingers from the earth, as if trying to snare her. The mansion's silhouette loomed ever closer, a ghastly apparition against the impenetrable darkness. It seemed to beckon Eleanor, its crumbling facade a grotesque invitation to a nightmarish revelry. The howling wind whispered secrets she couldn't comprehend, and shadows danced on the periphery of her vision, each one a specter from a realm beyond. The very forest seemed to conspire against her, a symphony of rustling leaves and distant cries that filled her with an unsettling unease. Eleanor's curiosity had led her here, to this place where the boundaries of the mortal world blurred with the supernatural. As she crossed the threshold of Grimwood Manor, its rotting door creaking in protest, she couldn't help but feel that she had entered a realm where nightmares took root and thrived. Eleanor's heart pounded like a funeral dirge in the cavern of her chest as she cowered behind the tattered curtain, the coarse fabric sticking to her clammy skin. The cultists' voices grew louder, their chant an eerie symphony that sent shivers down her spine. It was as if a chorus of lost souls was trapped within the mansion's decrepit walls, begging for release. The flickering candles cast grotesque shadows that danced upon the peeling wallpaper, giving life to macabre shapes that seemed to leer at Eleanor. The air grew colder with each passing moment, a chill that seemed to seep into her very bones. Her breath escaped in shallow, quivering gasps, each exhale forming ethereal, misty tendrils that hung in the damp, suffocating air. In the center of the chamber, the cult leader, a figure shrouded in a tattered robe that billowed like a funeral shroud, stepped forward. The hood that concealed their face added an aura of malevolence, leaving only the twisted grin of a wicked smile exposed. The leader held a sinister-looking relic aloft, a grotesque amalgamation of bones, feathers, and tarnished silver. As the leader raised the relic high above their head, the room plunged into a darkness so profound that it seemed to devour the very essence of light. Eleanor's heart clenched with fear, as if her soul were being pulled into a vortex of despair. The air grew colder still, and an ominous presence, heavy with malevolence, settled over the chamber like a shroud. Then it came, a spectral light emitted from the relic, casting an eerie, sickly glow that revealed the cultists' masks in ghastly detail. Their eyes, hollow and void of humanity, stared into the abyss, while their lips moved in fervent prayer, a chant that seemed to claw at Eleanor's sanity. In the flickering and ghastly light, Eleanor glimpsed grotesque symbols etched into the chamber's walls, each one more horrifying than the last. The symbols seemed to writhe and twist as though they were alive, pulsating with a dark energy that threatened to consume everything in its path. It became chillingly clear that the cult's purpose was not merely spiritual. They sought to commune with something ancient, unholy, and malevolent. Eleanor's morbid curiosity had led her into a nightmare from which there was no waking. Panic surged through her veins, her senses overwhelmed by the unholy spectacle before her. She knew she needed to escape this accursed chamber, But the cult's chanting had grown louder and more frenzied, like a cacophony of damned souls. The very walls of Grimwood Manor seemed to conspire against her, shifting and closing in like a living, breathing entity. Eleanor's grip on reality began to slip, and the oppressive darkness threatened to smother her. Her only hope lay in finding a way to break free from this infernal ritual. But the sinister power that held her captive was not ready to release its prey. Summoning every ounce of courage, Eleanor made a desperate dash for the door. The chilling darkness clung to her like a shroud, tendrils of malevolence reaching out to ensnare her. The very walls of Grimwood Manor seemed to recoil as if alive, their peeling wallpaper shifting and contorting, attempting to thwart her escape. She stumbled through the narrow, twisting hallways, the flickering light of her flashlight casting eerie, elongated shadows that danced like malevolent spirits. The air itself grew thick with an oppressive malevolence, as if the very atmosphere conspired against her. Eleanor could hear the cultists behind her, their footsteps echoing like a ghostly procession. Their chanting had escalated into a cacophony of madness, an unholy symphony that threatened to drive her to the brink of insanity. With every step, the mansion seemed to shift its layout, the hallways twisting and distorting as if mocking her attempts to find a way out. She felt like a trapped insect in a spider's web, her every movement bringing her closer to the center of the cult's web of horrors. Desperation clawed at her as she turned a corner and found herself face to face with a grotesque mural that seemed to writhe with life. It depicted nightmarish scenes of sacrifice and suffering, each stroke of the artist's brush conveying a malevolent intent that sent shivers down her spine. But Eleanor couldn't afford to be paralyzed by fear. She raised the antique mirror, its reflective surface a tiny island of salvation in the sea of madness. The spectral light emitted from the relic within the cult's chamber was amplified and reflected back, illuminating the hallway and blinding the pursuing cultists. Their cries of anguish filled the air as the malevolent light seared their masked faces, and Eleanor seized this moment to break free. She ran faster than she thought possible, her breath ragged, her heart pounding in her chest. Finally, as she burst through the mansion's decaying doors, she felt an explosion of malevolence behind her. Grimwood Manor collapsed into itself, devoured by the same darkness it had concealed for so long. Eleanor emerged from the forest, gasping for breath, her entire being trembling with the horror she had experienced. She had escaped the clutches of the cult of the Eternal Eclipse, but the memories of their unholy rituals and the malevolent force that had inhabited Grimwood Manor would forever haunt her, a chilling reminder of the terrors that lurk in the hidden corners of the world.